Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another musical moment with the old-time rock and roller. This was a really busy week. The Steve Perry scammers were out in full force. I've been woodshedding for therapy from my seizure. Came up with a half a dozen songs that are demos that will come to light in the future. Today is my good friend Ty Grimes' birthday. Ty and I are 1 year and 1 week apart. Ty is a great drummer. He played with Ricky Nelson, Tim Weisberg, Captain Beefheart, John Luke Ponte, Benoist King, Tutu Jones, many others, and of course myself. We had a group together in LA in 76, 77 called The Force. Where to begin? Well, in 1975, we'll call it, right around Steve Perry's 26th birthday, we met and agreed to record a couple of songs together. And over the couple of months that ensued, we brought that dream to fruition. However, I was booked to go on a 48 show in 42-day tour of Southeast Asia. And I told Steve, we'll get together when I get back. And we did, and we made a great recording. About the same time that I came back from the USO tour of Asia, I wanted to get into the martial arts. Hollywood is just off the hook with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I knew that I would be swallowed up like a fish in no time unless I started practicing some external discipline. And that is when I joined the South Bay Hung-Gar Kung Fu School. And I started getting myself together. Now, in the school, we had a lot of very interesting personalities. One of my older Kung Fu brothers was a guy named Marc Singer. Yes, the Beastmaster, the actor. Marc learned a lot of Chinese weapons in our club where he used in the movie. It helped give him a very strong foundation for that. And that was pretty cool. Now, in LA, I lived maybe a mile from the Whiskey and the Rainbow and Over the Rainbow. And I used to go in there quite a bit when I wasn't working and go to the upstairs Rainbow Private Club. One night I was there, and my old friend Jimmy Page and Robert Plant were there with Peter Grant in a booth talking over some stuff. Peter Grant was a real big guy, or I'm a really small man. Either way, I wanted to go over and say hi, but I was just a little intimidated by Peter. So I let that one ride. But in that particular club, I saw a lot of my idols just hanging out, having a good time. Now, my friend Tony Carey had a group called Blessings with another friend of mine named Mark Aubin and a guy named Miko, guitar player. And they got a deal on ABC Dunhill, and they were going to be produced by Gary Katz, who was Steely Dan's producer. Well, they were working on the Pretzel Logic album, and it was taking forever. Well, Tony, a keyboard player, was just getting bored. So he got a 6-week tour with Buddy Miles and the Roadrunners. And Buddy and them were heavy into Angel Dust at the time. And when Tony got back off the road, he said, man, those guys were too wild for me. Many years later, my poet friend, Lawrence Proman, and I, who had written, 100 songs for a project that we had started called the Voodoo Screamers. In the middle of the project, Lawrence had to take a flight to Dallas, Texas, and he was in first class with Buddy Miles. So he started talking with Buddy and telling him about me, and Buddy said, "Oh, I know the cat. Yeah, really hip guy, great guitar player." I had an opportunity in probably 76, 77, when I was the band leader for the Kathy McDonald band. We were on the road, and we had a great gig at the Keystone Corner in Berkeley. In fact, Eddie Money opened the show for us. And he had a saxophone that he was playing at the time. And it was a little before Two Tickets to Paradise came out. But he did a great job opening up. And the club was just fantastic. And the San Francisco women, wow, something else. Well, we were playing up at the Lion's Share, and Mickey Hart, the drummer for the Grateful Dead, and Nick Grevenites, the singer for the Electric Flag, and friend of Mike Bloomfield came in and asked if they could sit in on a blues. Well, I love the Electric Flag, man. They were so good with Mike Bloomfield, Texas, Another Country, Wine. Just off the hook, great song. So when they said, "Can we sit in on a blues?" I was like, "Sure, come on up." So we played about a 15-minute blues song. That might have gotten back to Buddy, who knows. It was a great time, though. Going back to 1966, right now it's April, it's springtime, and the Brown University spring weekend was in full force. Every year they would hire just an outrageous band to come and play. And I had met the Yardbirds with Jimmy Page the following year, 67. Well, this was 1966. It was a day such as today. Just absolutely gorgeous. Blue skies, no clouds, and the Young Rascals were playing. They had had a bunch of hits like Good Lovin', and this particular day, Groovin' on a Sunny Afternoon was on the charts. And they started that off, and Gene Cornish played the harmonica intro. Sounded just like the record. It was absolutely perfect. What a day for music. It's days like today that bring me back to days of yesterday. Many years later, when I had relocated to Atlanta, started my own record label, World Talent Records, and eventually made 15 blues CDs, there was a club on Beaver Ruin Road, about 2 miles from my house, and I drove by it once, and it was just like a dive bar, really. It wasn't even a club. But I saw Derek St. Holmes, and I thought, Derek St. Holmes, Cat Scratch Fever, Ted Nugent, let me go in here and meet this guy. And I went in, and there was Derek playing with a combo, and we got to talking, and I asked him about Ted and the old days, and he said, "I got another gig coming up in a couple of months. It's going to be even better. Why don't you come see me there?" And I did, and it's just amazing how you can be someplace that you don't think you're going to meet anyone, and out of the blue, you'll meet one of your rock and roll idols, or contemporaries, as the case may be. It was nice. The other night, I was watching the Ken Burns History of Jazz series. The first 5 DVDs are just awesome. Louis Armstrong, Benny Goodman, Ella Fitzgerald, Chick Webb. And I got stuck on the Chick Webb story because Chick was a dwarf hunchback drummer who played at the Savoy Ballroom, and his band knew no peer. And they used to have cutting contests where a band would come in and try and take them on. And one night, the Benny Goodman Band came to the Savoy. And they were both playing the same songs and the same arrangements by Fletcher Henderson. So hearing one song back to back by each group, the audience really got a feel for who was doing what. After that show, Gene Krupa said, Chick Webb cut me to ribbons. And he was just pouring sweat. Well, later, Chick wanted the success that everybody else was getting. And he told his lead singer, go out and find me a female vocalist, the best. And he came back with Ella Fitzgerald. And Chick said, no way you're putting that woman on my bandstand. And his lead singer said, she is so good, Chick. If you don't give her a shot, I'm quitting the band. So very reluctantly, Chick Webb let Ella Fitzgerald get up there. And bam! They took off like a rocket. They made some records, and Chick got the notoriety he deserved. But within a year, his health began to fail, and he said to his band, take care of Ella for me. Well, Ella didn't need any take caring of, because she just rose right to the top, and she kept the Chick Webb Orchestra, and bam. Well, when I was in my Hollywood days, I met a drummer who lived out in Eagle Rock, out by Pasadena, named Tony Belson. And he said, come on out, we'll jam and we'll get to know each other and everything. Well, I got out there, and it turned out that he was the adopted son of Pearl Bailey, who was married to Louis Belson, the jazz drummer. Man, what a combination there. Well, we had some great times talking about the old jazz days and just jamming, and Tony always had a bag of peyote buttons, so we'd eat some peyote buttons and get a little spaced, but it all added to the mood. It was really quite fun. Now, to wrap up today's stories, my hometown when I was in junior high and high school was Barrington, Rhode Island. It was right on Narragansett Bay. We had a little sailboat, a 16-foot snipe, and it was really great to go out there in the waves. My sister Kathy and I would sail around the bay all the time. Well, there was a Five and Dime, the Ben Franklin store. Don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the Five and Dime. But I went in there. I used to go in and look for 45s. And I saw Wilson Pickett, Land of a Thousand Dances. Now, I had heard that song on the radio, and that drum part, it was tremendous. So when I went into the Five and Dime, the Ben Franklin store, there was Wilson Pickett, Land of a Thousand Dances for $1. So I bought it, and I went home, and I wore that record out. Well, many years later, in the summer of 76, I think, or 77, I got a chance to go to Muscle Shoals and record with the Swampers. And that's where I played on Bob Seger's Old Time Rock and Roll. Well, maybe a year or two later, I played on Bobby Womack's The Roads of Life. And while I was there, I got to talking with Roger Hawkins, the drummer for the Swampers. He was my favorite drummer. He could take a song that somebody played on an acoustic guitar, and instantly he knew the right beat, the right genre to put that song in to make it a hit. Well, Roger was maybe 18 years old, working at Fame Studio with Rick Hall producing, and they recorded Wilson Pickett's Land of a Thousand Dances. And Roger recalls playing that part, and he said, when I finished, Wilson came over to me and said, man, you're a great drummer. And Roger listened to the part and he said, yeah, I'm a great drummer. And in his head, he believed it therein and for the rest of his life. Of course he was, so that didn't hurt anything. His Equilibrium bassist David Hood once recalled the greatest session he ever played on. As I said, Dave, we were talking, I said, what's the best record you've ever played on? Because you've played on freaking hundreds. And he said, we were in the Atlantic Studios in New York City. And Aretha was there playing Respect with her piano, and just banging it out. Man, I got goosebumps, he said. And that was the greatest record I ever played on. So, my friends, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip around the horn. Some new, old, borrowed blue memories. I'm going to wind it up with the latest Steve Perry scam story. This last week, I was contacted by a lady on Instagram who told me she was Steve's daughter. And we chatted a little bit. I asked her if she knew what songs her dad and I played on. And she did not. And I asked her a few other questions, and she got very defensive and kind of left in a huff. Well, 2 days after that, I get a note says Steve Perry. And it's the picture that he's got up on the Instagram page. A recent one, gray hair and so forth. And he said, hi, how are you? And I said, oh, great. Nice to see you. And he said, so thanks for liking all my videos and posts and everything. And I said, oh, you're welcome. And he said, how would you like to buy me a $100 Steam card? I said, what? And he said, why don't you go out and buy me a $100 gift card? And I said, well, why would I do that? And he said, well, because I'm Steve Perry. And I said, oh, if you're Steve, what were the 2 songs we recorded? And after a long pause and many Google searches later, he came back with Dreams Reality. And I said, okay. I said, what was the song we didn't record, but we're supposed to? And that was Any Way You Want It, my version. And he came back and said, listen, I really need that card. Can you get it for me now? And I said, well, if you're Steve, you've got $75 million. Why are you asking me and other people on the internet for $100? And the guy said, oh, please get it for me. And I said, no, you're embarrassing yourself. You really need to take a good look in the mirror and stop scamming people and pretending to be who you're not. And he disappeared. Well, I hope nobody else gets taken. Everybody's been pretty sharp about that. And I've heard from a lot of you regarding people who have contacted you trying to scam you recently, and thank goodness everybody's holding fast. So, my friends, that's it for this beautiful day in April. I'll be 74 next Sunday. God bless you. Keep a song in your head, love in your heart, and I will see you down the musical story highway with the next musical moment with the old-time rock and roller. So long, my friends. Make it a great day.